Have you ever looked at a date on a food package and immediately thrown it in the trash? You're not alone. Every year, millions of pounds of perfectly good food are discarded simply because of the date printed on the label. But here's something many people don't realize. In many cases, those dates are about peak quality, not necessarily safety. When foods are stored properly, some can remain perfectly usable well beyond their printed date. Of course, that doesn't mean every expired food is safe to eat. Some foods spoil quickly and should never be consumed if there are signs of spoilage. The key is understanding which foods often last much longer than people expect and knowing how to inspect them before using them. In today's countdown, we'll look at 15 foods that are commonly thrown away too soon and explain why they may still be worth checking before tossing them. Always rely on proper storage, your senses, and food safety guidance, not just the printed date. By the time we reach number 1, you'll discover a pantry staple that's famous for lasting far longer than almost anyone expects. Before we begin, subscribe to Prepper Pulse and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily videos. Every day, we bring you food storage tips, grocery saving strategies, and practical preparedness advice to help you waste less and save more. Now, let's begin with number 15. Number 15. White rice. Starting our countdown at number 15. White rice. Many people see a best-by date on a bag of rice and assume it's time to throw it away. But in reality, properly stored white rice often lasts much longer than its printed date. The key is storage. If the rice has been kept in a cool, dry place and protected from moisture, insects, and strong odors, there's a good chance it's still perfectly usable. Unlike foods with high moisture content, dry white rice is naturally shelf-stable. Over time, it may gradually lose a little flavor or aroma, but that doesn't automatically mean it's unsafe to eat. Before using older rice, inspect it carefully. Look for signs of moisture. Check for insects. And smell it. If there's an unusual odor or visible mold, it's best to throw it away. If it looks and smells normal, it's often still suitable for cooking. One reason so much rice gets wasted is confusion over food date labels. A best-by date is generally about quality, not a strict expiration date. Many people assume the food instantly becomes unsafe after that day, when that's often not the case for dry pantry staples. Of course, proper storage makes all the difference. Rice left in a damp environment won't last nearly as long as rice stored in airtight containers in a cool pantry. White rice earns the number 15 spot because it's one of the most commonly discarded pantry foods, even though properly stored rice often remains usable well beyond its printed best-by date. But the next food surprises even more people. It's a pantry staple found in millions of kitchens, and many jars are thrown away months before they actually need to be. Number 14. Peanut butter. At number 14. Peanut butter. Finding an older jar in the back of your pantry doesn't always mean it's time to throw it away. Many people see the printed date and assume the peanut butter has suddenly become unsafe. But unopened peanut butter often stays good well beyond its best-by date when it's been stored properly. Over time, the oils may separate. That's completely normal for many varieties, especially natural peanut butter. A good stir is often all it needs. The important thing is to check the jar before using it. Look for mold. Check for signs of moisture. And smell it. If it has a sour, rancid, or unusual odor, it's time to discard it. If it looks and smells normal, an unopened jar may still be perfectly usable. Even after opening, peanut butter usually has a surprisingly long life when the lid is kept tightly sealed and it's stored in a cool, dry place. That's one reason it's such a dependable pantry staple. Much of the confusion comes from food labels. A best-by date generally indicates when the manufacturer expects the product to be at its best quality. It doesn't automatically mean the food becomes unsafe the next day. Of course, storage conditions matter. A jar left in excessive heat or contaminated with dirty utensils won't last as long as one that's been handled properly. Peanut butter earns the number 14 spot because it's one of the most commonly misunderstood pantry foods, and many perfectly good jars are thrown away simply because people mistake a quality date for a safety deadline. But the next item has one of the longest shelf lives in the grocery store and has been safely stored for years in kitchens around the world when kept under the right conditions. Number 13. Pasta. At number 13. Pasta. It's another pantry staple that often gets thrown away long before it actually needs to be. Dry pasta has very little moisture, which is one of the reasons it lasts so long. When it's stored in a cool, dry place and kept in its original sealed package or an airtight container, it can often remain perfectly usable well beyond its printed best-by date. Over time, the quality may slowly decline. The texture or flavor might not be exactly the same as when it was first packaged. But that doesn't automatically mean it's unsafe to eat. Before cooking older pasta, take a close look at it. Check for signs of moisture. Look for insects. And inspect the package for damage. If the pasta has developed mold, an unusual smell, or evidence of pests, it should be discarded. Otherwise, it's often still suitable for cooking. One reason so much pasta ends up in the trash is that people confuse best by with must throw away. In many cases, those dates simply indicate when the manufacturer believes the product will have its best flavor and texture. Proper storage is the real key. Keeping pasta away from humidity and pantry pests can dramatically extend its usable life. That's why many families transfer it into sealed containers after opening the package. Pasta earns the number 13 spot because it's inexpensive, shelf-stable, and one of the foods most commonly discarded even though it often remains usable well after its printed date when stored correctly. But the next pantry staple has been trusted for generations, lasts remarkably well, and is often thrown away simply because people don't realize how durable it really is. Number 12. Dry beans. At number 12. Dry beans. Many people are surprised to learn that dry beans can remain usable for a very long time when stored properly. If you find an older bag in your pantry, don't assume it's automatically ready for the trash just because the printed date has passed. Unlike fresh foods, dry beans contain very little moisture. That helps them stay shelf-stable for extended periods when they're kept in a cool, dry place and protected from humidity and pests. As beans age, one thing does change. They may take longer to cook. Older beans can become harder and require additional soaking or more cooking time to soften. But that doesn't necessarily mean they've gone bad. Before using older dry beans, inspect them carefully. Look for signs of insects, moisture, mold, or unusual odors. If they appear clean, dry, and smell normal, they're often still suitable for cooking. This is another example of why understanding food date labels matters. A best-by date usually reflects the manufacturer's estimate of peak quality, not an automatic safety deadline. Storage conditions make the biggest difference. Beans stored in airtight containers away from heat and moisture can remain in good condition far longer than bags left in a damp garage or humid basement. Dry beans earn the number 12 spot because they're one of the longest-lasting pantry staples. Yet many people throw them away simply because of a date on the package rather than checking their actual condition. But the next food is even more surprising. It's a sweet pantry staple that's famous for lasting far longer than most people ever imagine. And in many cases, the biggest change you'll notice isn't spoilage at all. Number 11. Honey. At number 11. Honey. It may be one of the most remarkable foods in your pantry. Many people throw away a jar of honey after seeing the printed date, but that's often unnecessary. When honey is stored in a tightly sealed container and kept away from moisture, it has an incredibly long usable life. In fact, one of the most common changes people notice isn't spoilage at all. It's crystallization. Over time, honey may become thick, cloudy, or develop sugar crystals. That doesn't mean it's gone bad. In many cases, placing the jar in warm water and stirring gently will return it to a smoother consistency. Before using older honey, inspect the container. If moisture has entered the jar, fermentation or spoilage can occur. Look for unusual odors, bubbling, or obvious signs of contamination. If those are present, it's best to throw it away. But if the honey simply looks crystallized and smells normal, it's often still perfectly usable. Much of the confusion comes from misunderstanding food labels. A printed date doesn't necessarily indicate when honey becomes unsafe. Proper storage plays a much bigger role in preserving its quality. Many families keep honey in their pantry for years because they know it's one of the most dependable foods to have on hand. Honey earns the number 11 spot because it's commonly discarded after its printed date, even though properly stored honey often remains usable for an exceptionally long time. But the next pantry staple is found in almost every kitchen, and many people throw it away simply because its appearance changes, even though that change is often completely normal. Number 10. Soy sauce. Breaking into the top 10. Soy sauce. It's one of those condiments that often sits quietly in the back of the pantry for months. Then one day, someone notices the printed date and assumes it belongs in the trash. But unopened soy sauce often remains in good condition well beyond its best-by date when stored properly. Even after opening, its naturally high salt content helps preserve it, especially when it's kept tightly sealed and stored according to the label directions. Over time, you may notice small changes in color or flavor. Those changes are usually related to quality, not an automatic sign that the product has become unsafe. Before using an older bottle, check it carefully. Look for mold. Inspect the cap for leaks. And smell it. If it has an unusual odor or obvious signs of contamination, it's best to discard it. Otherwise, it may still be perfectly suitable for cooking. Soy sauce is used in countless recipes. Stir-fries, marinades, rice dishes, soups, and dipping sauces. That's why many families eventually finish a bottle even if it spends a long time in the pantry. Like many shelf-stable foods, the printed date is often about peak flavor rather than an exact safety deadline. Proper storage is what helps maintain its quality for the longest possible time. Soy sauce earns the number 10 spot because it's commonly thrown away after the printed date, even though properly stored bottles often remain useful much longer than many people expect. But the next food surprises even more shoppers. It's a canned pantry staple that many people discard too soon, even though unopened cans often stay usable well beyond their printed best-by dates when stored correctly. Number 9. Canned tomatoes. At number 9. Canned tomatoes. They're one of the most frequently used pantry staples. Yet they're also one of the foods people often throw away as soon as the printed date passes. The truth is a little more complicated. When stored in a cool, dry place, unopened canned tomatoes may remain usable beyond their best-by date. However, because tomatoes are naturally acidic, their quality can decline faster than many other canned foods. That's why it's especially important to inspect the can before using it. Never use a can that's bulging, leaking, severely dented around the seams, or showing signs of rust that may have compromised the container. Those are signs the food may no longer be safe. If the can is in good condition, open it and check the contents. If the tomatoes look normal and have their usual smell, they may still be suitable to use. If there's an unusual odor, discoloration, mold, or spurting liquid when the can is opened, throw it away immediately. Many people don't realize that the condition of the can is often more important than the printed date. A well-stored, undamaged can is very different from one that's been exposed to heat, moisture, or physical damage. Canned tomatoes earn the number 9 spot because they're commonly discarded after the date on the label. Even though unopened, properly stored cans may remain usable beyond that date if the can is still in good condition. But the next food is even more surprising. It's a baking essential found in millions of kitchens, and many unopened packages are thrown away long before they actually need to be. Number 8. All-purpose flour. At number 8. All-purpose flour. It's a pantry staple that many people throw away as soon as they notice the printed date. But unopened flour often remains usable beyond its best-by date when it's been stored properly. The key is protecting it from its biggest enemies: moisture, heat, and pantry pests. When flour stays dry and is stored in an airtight container in a cool location, it can maintain good quality for much longer than many shoppers expect. Before using older flour, take a few moments to inspect it. Look for insects. Check for any signs of mold or moisture, and give it a quick smell. Fresh flour should have a mild, neutral scent. If it smells sour, musty, or rancid, it's best to throw it away. Another reason flour gets wasted is confusion over food date labels. A best-by date is generally an estimate of when the manufacturer expects the product to have its best baking performance and flavor. It isn't necessarily the day the flour becomes unsafe. Of course, proper storage is essential. A bag left open in a humid garage won't last nearly as long as flour sealed in an airtight container inside a cool pantry. Many experienced home bakers transfer flour into sealed containers as soon as they bring it home. That simple step helps extend freshness while protecting it from moisture and insects. All-purpose flour earns the number 8 spot because it's one of the most commonly discarded baking staples, even though properly stored flour may remain usable well beyond its printed best-by date. But the next pantry item surprises even more people. It's a popular breakfast food that often lasts much longer than expected when stored correctly, yet countless containers are thrown away every year simply because of the date on the label. Number 7. Rolled oats. We're halfway through the countdown. Rolled oats. Many people assume that once the best-by date has passed, it's time to throw the container away. But that's often not the case. Because rolled oats are a dry pantry food, they can remain usable well beyond their printed date when stored properly. The most important factor is how they've been stored. A tightly sealed container kept in a cool, dry place will usually protect oats much better than a package exposed to heat or humidity. Before using older oats, inspect them carefully. Look for signs of insects. Check for moisture or mold. And smell them. Fresh oats have a mild, slightly nutty aroma. If they smell musty, sour, or rancid, it's time to discard them. Otherwise, they may still be perfectly suitable for cooking. Many people mistake a best-by date for an expiration date. In reality, the printed date often reflects when the manufacturer expects the product to have its best flavor and texture, not necessarily when it becomes unsafe. Rolled oats are also incredibly versatile. They can be used for oatmeal, granola, cookies, smoothies, muffins, and many other recipes. That's why taking a moment to inspect them before throwing them away can help reduce unnecessary food waste. Rolled oats earn the number 7 spot because they're one of the most durable dry pantry staples. Yet many perfectly good containers end up in the trash simply because people misunderstand the date on the package. But the next food has one of the longest shelf lives in the grocery store. It's a pantry favorite that's often still perfectly usable long after many people assume it has expired. Number 6. Vinegar. We're entering the top 6. Vinegar. It's one of the most overlooked pantry staples when it comes to shelf life. Many people notice the date on the bottle and assume it's time to replace it. But vinegar is naturally acidic, which helps it remain stable for a very long time when stored properly. In fact, unopened vinegar, and often even opened vinegar kept tightly sealed, can remain usable well beyond its printed best-by date. Over time, you might notice some harmless changes. The color may become slightly darker, or you may see a cloudy appearance or harmless sediment, especially in natural varieties like apple cider vinegar. These changes don't necessarily mean the vinegar has spoiled. Before using an older bottle, check for anything unusual. If there's mold, a strange odor, or signs that the bottle has been contaminated, it's best to throw it away. Otherwise, vinegar often remains suitable for cooking, pickling, marinades, and cleaning long after many people would expect. One reason vinegar gets wasted is because shoppers confuse a quality date with a safety deadline. For many shelf-stable products, those are not the same thing. Proper storage is what matters most. Keep the bottle tightly sealed and store it in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight. Vinegar earns the number 6 spot because it's one of the longest-lasting pantry staples. Yet many bottles are discarded simply because of the printed date instead of their actual condition. But now we're entering the top 5. The remaining foods are some of the most surprisingly durable items you can keep in your pantry, and the next one is a canned favorite that often stays good far longer than people realize when the can remains in excellent condition. Number 5. Canned beans. We've reached the top 5. Canned beans. They are one of the most dependable foods in the pantry. Yet many people throw them away the moment they notice the printed date on the can. In reality, an unopened can of beans that's been stored properly may remain usable beyond its best-by date. The first thing to inspect isn't the food. It's the can itself. If the can is bulging, leaking, rusted through, or has a deep dent along a seam, don't take chances. Throw it away. Damage like that can affect the safety of the food inside. But if the can is clean, sealed, and undamaged, open it and inspect the contents. The beans should look normal, smell normal, and have their usual texture. If you notice an unusual odor, mold, discoloration, or liquid spurting from the can when it's opened, discard it immediately. Like many canned foods, the printed date is often about peak quality rather than an exact safety deadline. Proper storage in a cool, dry place can help canned beans maintain their quality for much longer. Canned beans are also incredibly practical. They're ready to eat, packed with protein and fiber, and can be added to soups, chili, salads, tacos, or served over rice. That's why checking the condition of the can before throwing it away can help reduce unnecessary food waste. Canned beans earn the number 5 spot because they're one of the most commonly discarded canned foods. Even though properly stored, undamaged cans may remain usable beyond their printed best-by dates. Only 4 foods remain. The next one is found in almost every kitchen, and many people throw it away after seeing a date on the package, even though it often stays fresh much longer than expected when stored correctly. Number 4. Salt. We're down to the final 4. Salt. It may be one of the most misunderstood foods in the pantry. Many people are surprised to see a best-by date on a container of salt, and some even throw it away once that date has passed. But plain table salt is a mineral, not a food that spoils in the traditional sense. When stored properly, it can remain usable indefinitely. The biggest threat to salt isn't time. It's moisture. If water gets into the container, salt can clump together and become difficult to use. But clumping doesn't necessarily mean it's gone bad. In most cases, it's simply absorbed moisture from the air. As long as the salt is clean and free from contamination, it's generally still suitable for cooking. The same basic rule applies to most pure salts. Keep the container tightly sealed. Store it in a cool, dry place, and protect it from humidity. One thing to remember is that some specialty salts or salt blends may contain additional ingredients, so it's always worth checking the label for any specific storage recommendations. Many people throw away perfectly good salt simply because they assume every printed date is an expiration date. In reality, the date often relates to maintaining the product's best quality, especially if additives like iodine are included. Salt earns the number 4 spot because it's one of the longest-lasting pantry staples available, yet countless containers are discarded unnecessarily every year. Only 3 foods remain. The next item is a baking essential that has earned a reputation for lasting far longer than many people realize, provided it's been stored the right way. Number 3. Sugar. We've reached the final 3. Sugar. It's another pantry staple that many people throw away far too soon. Like salt, plain white granulated sugar has an extremely long shelf life when it's stored correctly. The biggest challenge isn't spoilage. It's moisture. If sugar absorbs humidity, it may harden into large lumps. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's unsafe to use. In many cases, those hardened pieces can simply be broken apart or dissolved during cooking or baking. Before throwing away an older bag of sugar, inspect it carefully. Look for signs of insects, moisture, or contamination. If it appears clean and dry with its normal sweet smell, it's often still perfectly usable. Many people don't realize that the printed date on sugar is generally about maintaining peak quality, not because the sugar suddenly becomes unsafe after that day. Proper storage makes all the difference. Keeping sugar in an airtight container in a cool, dry pantry helps protect it from moisture and pests while preserving its quality for years. Sugar is also one of the most versatile pantry ingredients. It's used in baking, preserving foods, making sauces, preparing desserts, and even balancing flavors in savory recipes. That's why throwing away a perfectly good bag simply because of the printed date can lead to unnecessary waste. Sugar earns the number 3 spot because it's one of the longest-lasting pantry staples, yet it's often discarded long before it actually needs to be. Only 2 foods remain. The next one has become famous for its incredibly long shelf life, and most people mistake a completely natural change as a sign that it has gone bad. Number 2. Maple syrup. We've reached the runner-up. Maple syrup. Many people assume that once the printed date has passed, the bottle belongs in the trash. But unopened pure maple syrup often lasts much longer than expected when it's stored properly in a cool, dark place. Even after opening, refrigeration helps preserve its quality for an extended period. One thing that surprises many people is that maple syrup can naturally become darker over time. That doesn't automatically mean it has spoiled. However, it's still important to inspect it before using it. If you notice mold, fermentation, an off smell, or other obvious signs of spoilage, discard it. Otherwise, properly stored syrup may still be perfectly suitable for pancakes, waffles, oatmeal, baking, and many other recipes. As with many pantry foods, the printed date is often about peak quality rather than an exact safety deadline. Proper storage plays a much bigger role in determining how long the product remains usable. Maple syrup earns the number 2 spot because it's commonly thrown away based on the date alone, even though properly stored bottles often remain usable much longer than many people realize. Only one food remains. It's one of the most famous examples of a pantry staple that can last for an incredibly long time, and one natural change causes countless people to throw it away even though it's usually still perfectly good. Number 1. Pure vanilla extract. We've finally reached number 1. Pure vanilla extract. It may be one of the most expensive ingredients in your pantry, and it's also one of the foods people often throw away far sooner than necessary. Many bottles end up in the trash simply because the printed best-by date has passed. But pure vanilla extract has something working in its favor. Its high alcohol content helps preserve it for a very long time when it's stored correctly. If the bottle has remained tightly sealed and kept in a cool, dark place, it can often retain its quality for years beyond the printed date. Before using an older bottle, inspect it carefully. The liquid should still have its familiar rich vanilla aroma. If you notice an unusual smell, visible mold, or signs that the bottle has been contaminated, it's best to discard it. Otherwise, it may still be perfectly suitable for baking and cooking. Many people don't realize that the printed date is generally about the manufacturer's estimate of peak quality rather than the exact day the product becomes unusable. Because pure vanilla extract is used in small amounts, one bottle often lasts for years. That's why it's one of the pantry items most commonly thrown away simply because of the calendar instead of its actual condition. Pure vanilla extract earns the number 1 spot because it's one of the longest-lasting baking ingredients, yet countless bottles are discarded unnecessarily every year. Food date labels can be confusing, and they don't always mean what people think. For many shelf-stable foods, a best-by date is about quality, not an automatic expiration date. Before throwing food away, inspect it carefully. Look for signs of spoilage. Think about how it has been stored. And when in doubt, always choose safety first. Understanding the difference between quality dates and actual spoilage can help reduce unnecessary food waste and save money over time. If you enjoyed today's countdown, subscribe to Prepper Pulse and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily videos. Every day, we share food storage tips, grocery saving strategies, and practical preparedness advice to help you shop smarter and waste less. Thanks for watching. Stay prepared, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.